today we got a question from Joe on Twitter, and he sent me a message. He says, I got your email today about grip strength, the Wolverine comparison. I'll explain that in a second. And do you ever get sort of crazy inflammation or pain caused from gripping? So Joe, thanks for the question, brother. And so Joe's talking about an email that I sent out. So I sent out an email Monday through Friday. And in the email I was talking about Wolverine. He was my favorite comic book character growing up. When I was a kid, I used to collect comic books, and I didn't appreciate his superpower until I got older, which was like the healing factor. I liked the claws, and I liked that he was kind of a badass, but I didn't appreciate the fact that the healing factor was the thing that made it possible for them to stuff him full of metal so that he could have those metal claws, right? And in the email I was talking about how grip fighting is kind of a boring thing that most people kind of overlook, but if you get really good at grip fighting, it makes it very easier. It makes the other moves and things like that possible. And so that's what I was talking about. Now, to answer your question, Joe, yes, I've dealt with all kinds of pain. Most commonly, I get it in my fingers, and it'll be almost like my fingers will curl up after training sometimes, just and they're super painful. And then every now and then I've dealt with some issues on the medial side of my elbow right here, like the inside, where I'll get this pain here. And this comes up for different reasons. And there's been a few things that I've done to fix it. I'm going to explain a couple with you. I'm also going to give you guys a couple of weird strengthening exercises that you may not be doing. So we're going to take a look at one, increasing the health of your grip so that you're not like injuring yourself. And then we're also going to take a look at some again, they're kind of weird angles that a lot of people completely overlook when they're in the weight room or whenever they're training. So first things first, let's talk about the reason why you might be experiencing grip problems. Joe, a lot of times, most with what we do in jiu-jitsu, we're squeezing and we're curling forward, right? We're curling in. And then if you think about what we do when we like work and stuff like that, we're sitting at our computer, we're kind of curled in, right? And then you think about what most people do to strengthen their grips, right? They might take a dumbbell or a farmer's carry handle or whatever, they'll hold, they'll squeeze, and then if they're doing something, they'll do some of these rolls like this. They do all that same stuff. So what ends up happening is you get this crazy imbalance with all these muscles in here that basically do this. So you walk around with these little claw hands and you have this chronic pain. So here's something that you can do first off. One is, this is kind of like a really simple tip. When you're holding your dumbbells and barbells and things like that, don't let them get down in here into this part of your hand. Make sure you have a good grip, and if you feel like you're starting to kind of lose it, either use some straps or just use some different weight, because this right here, this sort of handle like this can create some problems up here into that elbow joint. And again, if you're thinking about holding a gi, we already do this enough. We don't need to strengthen that style grip. So you want to make sure you get a good grip on the handle that you're using. Now here's a simple exercise that you can start with. And again, I'm going to give you an exercise, but dude, go down the rabbit hole with it and figure this stuff out. But we're going to talk about extension. So we do flexion. This is kind of if you guys have watched some of the videos I talk about this, our body does this. It's all flexed in. So a lot of what you want to do when you're outside of the gym is extension, open things up. So from here, it's a really simple exercise that you can begin with. We're going to hold the weight nice and firm in our hands. And then from here, we're just going to work on extending upwards. So again, this is a motion that rarely gets used, right? I mean, when are we doing this in jiu-jitsu? When are we doing this live? Very rarely. So we want to do this because what this is going to do, this is going to strengthen these muscles, these extensor muscles, which are doing the opposite. So basically, if we're doing this all the time, we want to do something opposite. And that'll help sort of balance out. And there's a lot of different exercises, but that'll kind of give you a nibble and sort of give you something to think about. So hold the handle tight, and then make sure we're working on extensor muscles, right? Now, let's go ahead and go over to the rig. I'm going to show you guys a couple of weird exercises that are going to be very specific for jiu-jitsu that would be really useful to incorporate as far as being incorporating for your grip strength training related to jiu-jitsu specifically. That's the benefit of having your own gym. You can just throw the weights around. I was doing some squats and RDLs earlier. I really like this safety bar handle. My shoulder's a little jacked up, so I was doing squats on this today. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on grip strength, and this is going to be very specific to jiu-jitsu, as you'll see in a second. But again, even if you're not necessarily doing jiu-jitsu all the time, it's still a good exercise to develop overall grip and strength and forearm health. So in jiu-jitsu, when we're doing collar chokes, for instance, right, we're grabbing here and we're doing this with our hand to finish the choke, right? So if we do a cross collar choke, boom, we're flexing. And then sometimes we do like an over-under, and again, it's this. So this one's going this way, this one's going this way, and that's called ulnar and radial deviation. And so just talking about the ulnar and the radial bone. So what we're going to do is we're going to strengthen that. So from here, And the reason why you might want to do this is because if you've ever been like trying to do a collar choke and you've like you're doing this and you're squeezing really tight, and then all of a sudden you feel like your forearms start to burn out, or you just don't have the extra oomph for finishing, then that would be a reason maybe to do these. So I'm taking a band. You could also do this on a cable machine. All I'm going to do is I'm going to grip the band, and we're going to start by bringing your arm down, and then all I'm going to do is just focus on flexing at that end point right here. Just flexing that little bit at the end, right? Nice and controlled. That's number one. Second one, we'll go the other direction, and we're going to push this into our pocket, and then what I want to do is that the little side of my hand, the knife hand, the bone there, I want to drive that down to the ground. And again, what this is going to do is this is going to develop sort of a particular type of strength in your forearm and your wrist for the movements that we're going to have to do when we're finishing a collar choke. So again, there's a lot more to grip strength than simply one type of grip. But again, in these particular situations in this video, what I'm talking about, one is create health by working out the antagonist muscle, or the muscles that don't get used very often. And then on top of that, we can do some specific strength training for the muscles that we need, which again, these are two of them. There's more than that, but I don't want to make this video too long. But again, these sort of angles that a lot of times, I mean, I don't know if you guys have, I don't really train this that often, right? In any other exercise, it doesn't really get used. So it's a good thing to sort of incorporate from time to time to strengthen that. And again, a good time to sort of, a good way to know if you need to do it is if you're in the gym training and you're going for collar chokes and stuff and you're running out of gas in your forearms, or your arms are hurting, or you're not able to finish those collar chokes, that would be a good time to sort of start to incorporate some grip training into your strength training, or whenever you're not actually at the gym. So guys, hopefully that's helpful. Joe, thanks for the question. And guys, I'll talk to you next time.